but I realized at that point that I was actually pretty good at seeing color differences. So we're going to talk a lot about color, and color plays a really important part. I'm getting all my little props out here for you guys. So one thing I want to talk to you about is specifically the color spectrums. And so this is I think it's always funny when I talk to you guys about this because this is what I would teach my middle schoolers is, the ranges of colors. So when we look at digital things versus what we print or even what we color, and by color I mean like just coloring and stuff, we as designers focus more on a digital aspect. Is it going to be digital display or is it going to be printed? And so there's two ranges that we work with. So the first one is RGB, that's red, green, blue. Hey. If you're stupid like I was, back in the day, we had those really big TVs with the back ends. Those are called cathode ray tubes or CRT TVs. And if you ever were dumb and like me and sat up real close to it, I literally could see the blue, red, green dots inside. And I vividly can remember seeing them. Of course, that's also there like, don't sit so close to the TV, it'll mess up your eyes. But that's not what messed my eyes up. So, anyways, it was a soccer ball to the lefty eye. But but I do remember seeing those. And so red, green, blue, I'm gonna tell you is that's basically the color spectrum that we can see. It encompasses it. So what's on the outside, in case you're curious, ultraviolet and infrared. Those are the two that we can't see on the outside. So then the question will come, okay, so that's video. The display you're looking at right now, the camera that's showing you me, your cell phones, your televisions, all of that does RGB. So what is CMYK? Well, CMYK is just a smaller range. So if we have RGB, CMYK is just on the inside. Of course, circles make better sense. So this is my graphic. It's so high tech. So red, green, blue is actually what we're capable of seeing currently just with the human eye. But CMYK is just on the inside of it. So like that seems odd, but basically CMYK cannot do like ultra bright neon colors, like to get that vivid, rich, bright blue, green, pink, whatever. You would actually need an RGB range. Uh, uh, if you've ever done a color conversion, which is really just taking a picture inside of Photoshop, you go into image, colors, and then I'm just trying to remember. But if you do like image and then you like, I think it's the color one of the top three, and then it'll say like RGB CMYK. If you switch it from RGB to CMYK, you'll actually see that it kind of like muddles the colors or subdues them. And that's because you're taking your color range and you're shrinking it down a little bit. So there's a certain amount of colors that you can't get to. They tried to solve that at one point, and they were like, oh, we're just going to create these other types. It was like hex colors. And it helps a little bit, but it's like in between. And honestly, no industry was really going to jump into it because the printers don't have hex color, plugs. And then I've had students bring up when I mentioned that printers print at CMYK, and then they're like, well, my printer at home does RGB. Right. So that's kind of a newer thing in terms of the technology of what we do. But even then, like my printer does CMYK. The color cartridges you pick up, they may be RGB, they may be CMY, but it still isn't that big of a point because commercial printers can't do that. They strictly do a CMYK color range. And having worked in a print house for 3.5 years, that's just the way that they are. And so that's why it's a good thing to keep in mind. So we're going to talk about colors, and we're actually going to be working with CMYK. And part of the reason that the lesson does that is because you could have the cool color spectrum of RGB, but it's going to print and be muddled. And so it's good to have a client approve something the way it looks versus them approving a RGB and then you print out CMYK and it doesn't look exactly that way. So what am I trying to say in that statement is it's good to create everything in CMYK and then get that approval, because even if you don't print it and it's going like if you're printing something and it's going to be displayed online, That way they look exactly the same. But if you're creating like websites and things and you're using lab colors, totally fine. Stick with the RGB if you want. But if it is like a document, like say you're going to print it out, but you're also going to have a PDF available online, just do a CMYK. And then that way it's one file. You don't have to worry about anything. All of that said, most clientele or most people that are not do not have a marketing some marketing, but specifically a graphics background, they're not really going to know the difference. The only time it's ever come up during like one of my jobs was the book publisher, and it was because someone was like, this blue is not bright enough, and I had to get the owner down and show him, dude, I can't do this. So that's why I like to explain that RGB is what we always see. CMYK is a section of that inside. It's a smaller area, okay? All right, so we're going to jump into lesson 5. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to go to File, and I'm going to go to Open. It's still set in lesson 2. So I'm going to go to lesson 5, navigate into lesson 5. There is a start file. So I'm going to go ahead and start. Go ahead and update the modified links. We still have 3 weekends before I show you guys that, but and it's not a huge deal right now. I'm trying to focus on other things. But if you ever run into that in the real world, I'm happy to accommodate you and explain some of that as well. So when we open it, just hit update, and then we're gonna honestly, I like the way it looks now compared to how it looks in the end, but it's okay. The lesson actually does do a lot of changes, and we're gonna change some stuff up. So let me get my little deal over here set. Wait a second. Yes. Got that. Okay. First thing I want you to notice, we don't see any guides and we have a light gray around it. That means we're in preview mode. Okay. So, oh, whoops, I'm not even in. There we go. If you just hit the W key, W as in Washington, that will actually turn off preview mode. Turns it on, turns it off. All right. So from here, we can see the red bleed line on the outside. We can see the margins, the pink and magenta, or sorry, purple and magenta. And then we can see all the frames that are in here as well. So let's mess this whole thing up. Okay. So we're going to do a lot, but this is a really great lesson. I do enjoy this one. So the first thing we're going to do is we need to take a look at our swatches. So on the left, or sorry, the right-hand side, that panel, the swatches is the one that has the 6 boxes. There's 2 rows of 3. I'm going to pop that open. You can also, again, go to window. It's under color and then swatches if you go to the window menu at the top. So one thing, I don't think it ever actually has been asked in class, but I'm sure it crosses people's mind of, well, why don't we go to color? Honestly, we don't go to color because swatches, once you put a swatch in as a color, or a code of color in as a swatch, you never have to guess what the color code or what that color is again. It's the exact same color. I think most of the time now, people that come to this class, they already understand that how color versus swatches works, but I like to share that just in case. Swatches are the way to go. I promise you, when it comes to trying to figure out colors, just make a swatch. If you find a color and you're like, I like that, make a swatch. But we're going to do that in this entire lesson the whole time. So I'll real quick want to go through the anatomy of what this is. So I'm going to look specifically here where this dark green is. The none registration paper, which is not white, I'll explain that. But none registration paper in black, those are your defaults. That's why they have the brackets. That is literally what's there when you start a brand new document. The green dark, that's not. They added that in there, but you'll see that there's a little swatch. Swatch is like the term for if you go to the paint store like Home Depot, Lowe's, or Sherwin-Williams, and they have those little paint, like the samples, those are swatch pieces. And so it's the same principle. It shows you a sample of what the color should be based on your screen. Next to it is a name. We're going to talk a little bit about that, but you can rename these. Okay, so then when we move over, this is, well, this one doesn't have the pencil or pen, but we don't have to worry about that. The pen head with a line through it means you can't change it. The non-registration paper in black, you cannot change those. Those are like set and done. But this box, the second to the last box on the right, we're going to look at an example that's different. It's called spot color, but this is called process. So that means that if it's RGB, it's red, green, blue. That's your process colors. If it's CMYK, it's cyan, magenta, yellow, black. And so those are your process colors. We'll talk about spot colors during the lesson as well. And then if we go to the very far right of where green dark is, you see 3 lines that are vertical: red, green, blue, RGB. If you look above it where black is and you go to the far right, you see 4 triangles: cyan, magenta, yellow, black. And so at this point, I want to make it very clear that when we do color codes or color formulas, that's the order they're in. So if you're doing an RGB color, it is RGB, red, green, blue. It's always in that order. Cyan, magenta, yellow, black, CMYK is always CMYK. All right. But these give you an idea of what these 2 icons represent. So one is right now set to RGB and one's set to CMYK. And we'll talk about, I got to be careful because it's the terminology. We'll talk about color management systems, CMYS or CMS, in just a bit. But what we're going to do real quick is learn how to real quickly switch a swatch color to a different, what do they say? Different color mode. So RGB is a color mode and CMYK is a color mode. To do this, because this is a really common thing to have to do, we're going to go ahead and we're going to double click where it says dark green. Now, I'm going to warn you, if you double click on the name, it might try to get you to change the name. So I generally like to click off to the side of the name in the empty space because there's too many times I didn't click fast enough. And then it's all like, you want to change the name? And I'm like, nah, man, I wanted you to open a panel. So just double click that swatch and it'll open up a floating panel. Here's the swatch options. So we see swatch name set to green dark. We're not going to change the name as much as I want to. We're not going to change the name. We're going to skip past the checkbox. The color type is process, so we're going to leave that alone. But you'll see color mode, so it's set to RGB. If we go ahead and drop that combo box down, you're going to see a whole bunch of other stuff there. So we have HSB, we have lab colors, CMYK, RGB. Everything that's from the ANPA, the ANPA, all the way down to other library. These are these are color management systems. So these are CMSs, but Pantone is the most famous, but we're going to talk about that in a little bit. What I want to focus on is that it's set to RGB and right above that is CMYK. So we're going to switch that by just clicking CMYK. Now you're going to see cyan, magenta, yellow, black, and all these percentages, that's the actual color code. Don't worry about that. We're going to talk about those in just a second as well. That's the next thing. So that's all you really need to do. Once you change the color mode to be CMYK, just go ahead and hit OK. And you'll notice in your swatches panel on the very far right-hand side that we now have the CMYK triangle square. I'm sure if you just said that out loud, they'd be like, I think he's having a stroke, but triangle square makes sense in this case. So that's how you can switch it through from one color mode like RGB over to another color mode like CMYK. All right, so now I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a minute. So I kind of want you guys' attention on this one. It'll be beneficial. So we're going to talk about color management systems. And I'm looking to make sure I don't mispronounce things. We're going to go next to creating colors, but I want to show you guys something. It's so funny that I think something's funny, and I'm going to tell you what it is. So the most popular, like well-known, or I could say famous, but the most well-known CMS is Pantone. So a lot of times people would be like, oh, you know, it's this Pantone color, and we would think of it as a default name, but that's actually the name of the company. The company is called Pantone. And so if you've ever seen a Pantone book, they're expensive. So be It's crazy. I have one. It's actually from 1995, which is when I was in high school. But a lot of the colors that they offer haven't changed inside the standard books. So I don't even really need the book. I have one. I acquired it. So when I say they're like the paint swatch things at the store, this is like what a Pantone book looks like. So this is a Pantone color management system, CMS. So you can see, and then like I literally, if I was doing the second to the bottom one, this one is Pantone 334 as well. Okay. And then there's other Pantones, like there's two main ones, there's coded and uncoded. So 334C is coded, 334U is uncoded. So remember I told you I could see colors really good? I was working at the ad agency and they did actually have a Pantone book that was both coded and uncoded. So I was like, yo, let me check that out. Jason had it in his cubicle. So he handed it to me and I looked and I barely, I mean, it's so subtle on the difference. It's just that one, I think it's the uncoded was like slightly less vibrant. Like the only way you could ever tell is if they were right next to each other and you're trying to see the difference between the two. But in the real world, you probably would never even know the difference. So if a client says, "Hey, my logo color for my logo is 334C," then use coded. That means that they're using a specific type. If they just give you the number 334, then you're kind of carte blanche to choose whichever one you want. They also have other libraries for it, or other books like the Metallic. I actually saw at the book publisher was super cool. It's like $250 for that book, and it's real thin. This one is probably nowadays like 400, like maybe 350. It'd probably be between 3 and 350 for these books. So they're not cheap. That's why I acquired one because they did not need it anymore. They got a new one, and I was like, I'll take it. So if you can get them, cool. If not, don't worry about it. So I say don't worry about it because Pantone decided they wanted to start charging people a monthly fee or yearly fee to have access to their Pantone system. So we're not going to be using Pantones. I do, in fact, with my new computer, I haven't even gone in and put the Pantone colors in for myself. I know a way to do it. I got a hold of it like right before all of this, but I don't even know how to do it on Macs, and I barely can remember how to do it on PCs. I got to go find it again. So don't freak out. It's not a huge deal. I'm betting, I'm like 99% confident. There's actually sites online that if you have a Pantone color code, you could type it in and it'll give you the CMYK code. That's actually something that we're going to look at too, is how you can switch one, take a color, a CMS color, and then be able to switch it to an RGB or CMYK. But since we can't use Pantone, we're going to use a different one. It's called Toyo, which is kind of interesting. They introduced it in this edition, so it was really cool. Last semester was the first time that I actually followed this, and it was kind of neat to do that. So I'm going to share my screen again. We're going to look at how do we add a color to our swatches panel. But we're going to look at the two different ways. In this case, it's going to be adding one from a color management system and adding CMYK on our own. So the first one is a color management system. To do this, we're going to take, I don't know, what does it do that? Swatches. Okay. Yeah. So we don't have anything selected. Please make sure nothing's selected. You will know instantaneously if something's selected because as soon as you add a swatch, it's going to apply that color. So just make sure that nothing is currently selected. In your swatches panel, we're going to go to the top right, the panel menu. So swatches panel menu. Remember, it's the 4 horizontal lines in the top right corner of a panel. We're going to click that open. This is going to open up a pretty long one. It's got a lot of good options in here. And in this lesson, we're going to go through like probably a third of them because it's really what's important there. The others are like the visuals inside the panel. We're actually going to start with a new color swatch. So it's going to be the very first option. So again, inside the swatches panel, we're going to go to the top right of the panel where those 4 horizontal lines are. We're going to choose that. It is the menu. So it's the panel menu, the swatches panel menu. And then once you click it and the options menu opens up, we're going to choose new color swatch. This will open up the new color swatch panel. Yes, it is pretty much exactly like the panel we were looking at when we tried to switch the dark green. But we're going to add a new one. If you have a swatch selected, it will kind of default on that one and show you in case you want to modify from that one. But what we're going to do, we're not going to worry about the name. We'll talk about the names in just a bit when we start actually adding colors based on our own color codes. But what I want to look at is, are they wanting us to switch this to a spot? Yes. Okay. Where it says color type, we see process. There are two types. There's process and spot. Okay. We're going to choose spot. See spot. Select spot. Now, I do have to explain spot colors real quick. I promise I'm not going to drone on about it. And we are going to add this first swatch before we do a break. Spot colors, you got to be really careful. So 9 times out of 10, and I really mean like 9.99 times, you're going to end up selecting process. Spot colors are not cheap. For example, I remember one time I had the Target logo file. And so if I was putting a Target logo on a letterhead, let's say, to do spot color, I would literally take a stack of papers, put it into a specific machine. It does one color at a time. And so it would literally, like I put the red on there. The thing about these color management systems like Toyo, which we're about to do, HSN was another one, and then Pantone, is that you actually buy these inks from those companies, and the inks are not cheap. And then the process itself, the thing is that how it looks inside the booklet that you may have is exactly how it's supposed to print. So that's the way it's supposed to look. Same principle of when you're trying to choose paint at the store. This is how it's supposed to look, right? It never does. Let's just be honest. But that's the whole principle behind all of this. So the thing with spot colors is it's expensive because they do one color at a time, and that color is very specific to whatever color you're choosing. So try not to choose spot colors if you're not going to do that. I did have a printer one time. It was when I did I think it was the Transit. Was it the Transit? Yes, it was when I was working for Dart and doing the advertising, and it was a guy in Cleveland. Super cool dude. We used to talk about 80s metal hair bands. Him and his wife were fantastic. They ran a little shop, and so they were just wonderful people. And so he called me one day and he goes, "Yo, Paul," he doesn't sound like this, I'm just making it up. But he was like, "Hey, Paul, there's a spot color in this file. You sure you want to do that?" And I was like, "Oh, hell no." And so we had a good laugh about it. He goes, "No, I'll convert it." I said, No, I can do it." He goes, "No, you're fine." And so it was okay. But you gotta also be careful because if the printer has to do work for you, they're going to charge you for it. And they are not cheap. So just try to always, we're doing spot color because it's part of the lesson, but I would recommend keeping that on a process. Process is it takes more than one color to create other colors. So literally the way it goes through a printer is the paper runs through and it puts down the cyan, then it puts down the magenta, the yellow, the black. It goes through what's called a fuser. It's like 200 plus degrees. And it melts the colors together and it creates all the color range, the range of colors that you're trying to print. And that's called process because it takes more than one color to make it happen. But for the lesson, we're going to leave this one on spot. And I like sharing that information because not a lot of people understand. There's a lot of designers who do not understand how the whole color process works. So we're going to leave that as spot. And then where it says color mode, we're going to drop that down. And this one, like I said, HKS is like a really big one. But we're going to go to Toyo, and it's the Toyo color finder. Do not choose the 94, just choose the Toyo color finder. All right, so this one's got a different numbering system, but I do want to point out on the far right-hand side of these, you see these like where it does like the color bars. That's a symbol of a color management system, okay? Real quick, because I think this is fun and I think it's a good visual for you. I want you to take that slider that's on the far right of all these little squares, and I want you to just roll it down. And what you're going to see is that you'll notice that it goes from like light to an intense color, light to an intense cut. Like it's kind of like layers. So as you're moving through, and then as you get towards the bottom, it does like more natural colors and then some vibrant colors too. All right. So I'm going to scroll this back up to the top. So yeah, that honestly, like you can literally just sit here and click through it and be like, oh, you know what? I like this color. I like this color. And that's also a way to get around having to have one of the little uh CMS catalogs like my Pantone book or the books. That's the word I was looking for. All right. For this one, our client has told us that the color they need from Toyo is 10002 asterisk, which just happens to be the second one. I appreciate they're keeping this simple for us. But each one of these colors has a code or yeah, like a color, a number that's associated to it. So, pay attention to that. Same thing with Pantones. I told you guys earlier, like if I open it now, I'm gonna go to the purples. I like the purples. Ooh, let's do a cool lavender one. Like Pantone 2645U is a lavender. It's a nice, good, like kind of light medium lavender. So if a client tells you a specific number, they're using a specific color. So I've done stuff with Dr. Pepper logos, Target logos, the Dallas Stars before they changed the logo. I like the old logo personally, but there's like a whole set of Pantones in there. So we're gonna choose our 10002. So it's actually just the second option, and then we're gonna hit. Hang on. Okay, let's just hit OK. That way, I close the panel. When you look at your swatches panel, you're gonna see your Pantone, or sorry, your Pantone, your Toyo color at the bottom. And anytime you add a new swatch, it immediately goes to the bottom. You can reorder these if you want. Just click and drag to reorder stuff. I honestly don't really care. I've never seen a benefit to that. But I want to point out if we look on that line where it's at all the way to the far right, the very furthest right box is that like color, the color, it's a color change or color bar. That's it. You'll see the two color bars stacked. That's a symbol of a CMS, a color management system. But I want you to look at the box to the left of it. It's a square with a circle inside. That's a spot color. Get it? It's a spot in the middle of a square. So that's what a spot color indicates. I want you to know what that looks like in case you see it, because you would need to change that back to a process. We're not going to do that. Don't worry. And it's as simple as you double click that swatch. This one, it's because it's set to Toyo. You would just switch it to CMYK, then you can switch it to process. Don't worry about it. Okay. All right. So that's how you add a color from a color management system. Sorry, I'm saying it like that because I'm trying to not say Pantone. But that's how you would use it for a color management system. Let's see. Yep, about 20 seconds. Yeah, no problem. It's a good question to ask. Because also I've noticed that this InDesign has one and I moved it somewhere. Let me see if it pops up. Yeah, it like has its little deal where it's like text to image, relink images. Like it has this floating piece, and then Photoshop has like a text deal where you can like this. Yeah, it's like describe what you want to be generated. I don't want you to generate something because it doesn't always do it right. But all right, guys. So let's jump back in. All right. Let me back up here. Okay, so we are going to look at adding swatches, but we're going to add in the colors. All right. There's a couple ways that you can do this if you want to sample. So if you guys will look at my screen for a moment, if I go, I mean, it doesn't matter which one's on top, but if I were to take like my color eyedropper, I'm just going to show you this because I'm not worried about the sampling. And I sample and I'm like, hey, you know what? I like this color. I can click and drag and add it down here. It's actually not the color I want. So that's helpful to be able to sample if you like a color. So I sampled out of here, but don't worry about it. But we're going to add one in I shouldn't say 9 times out of 10, 7 out of 10 times. There's a lot of times that you're working on something and you want a specific color. So I'm going to kind of show you guys the sliders, but I'm going to tell you how color codes work because that's actually the more important thing. So let's go to the swatches panel, and then we're going to go to the panel menu in the top right. and then we're going to do a new swatch, a new color swatch. So nothing selected. We haven't done anything. We're going to go to the swatches panel menu in the top right and do a new color swatch. So, first things first. So where it says swatch name, let me check. I don't know. So okay, they are doing it the way I do it. All right, just double checking something. So where it says swatch name, honestly, I don't put names in there. I got used to just leaving the color code there. That's actually a color code, what you're seeing at that top part. So the reason I do that is I might have two reds that are pretty similar, and they might be for different purposes, or two blues, and I just want to make sure that I know what the difference is. It's just me. You know, if a different system or a different method works for you, go for it. I usually leave these. If, like, for example, if you do a swatch and from, let's say, Pantone, and it's Target, and you got to keep that way, you can switch it to CMYK, but you can also uncheck this box and tell it Target red. So that way you know that that's specifically the Target red. Now, the question may come up, why was this not available when we were doing the spot colors? And that's like when we were doing spot color and we were doing the Toyo. And that's because the name of the color is actually that number. You know, if it's Pantone 6642, it's Pantone 6642. There is no other name to it. The process end of things isn't that big of a deal maker on that. So you could change it if you want. I don't really care. I personally I'm gonna leave these alone, and I recommend that you do that because I'm gonna tell you, yeah, it's the one with cyan that's 11, just so that we know what they are. When we talk about color codes, cyan, magenta, yellow, black, that's actually the order they're in. I don't tell someone it's cyan, yellow, magenta, 7. That's just not how it works. And when I worked at the ad agency, Cricket Mobile was my main client. And so one time, I can't remember her name, so I'm just gonna say Shannon. It's not that. I can't remember her name. It's so long ago. But I remember saying like, "Hey Shannon, I need the dark green color code," and she just literally she'd bark out like 10, 0, 40, 20. It's that number sequence is cyan, magenta, yellow, black. So don't be freaked out if you ask for a color code and someone yells at you in these 4 different colors or 4 different numbers. So we're gonna create a yellow. That's actually gonna be the first one. So I'm gonna kind of stair step you guys through it, and then I think we're adding like 4 or 5 swatches. So we'll get into where I just start telling you color codes. So we're gonna start out first with this yellow. So we're gonna start out cyan is the first one. It's these sliders down here. So if you're ever uncertain or you just want to modify a color, you can adjust these sliders. They go from 0 to 100%. And honestly, you'd be really crazy surprised on like what colors get mixed to make what. Like if you want a really good green, you know, obviously cyan and yellow, but what was it to do red? Is it red? Yeah, like adding a little cyan in there like really gives you a good rich red. But anyways, so you can always use the sliders if you're trying to adjust and try to find colors for yourself because it creates a color code for you. But in this case, they actually are telling us the color code, so we're going to enter those in. So for the cyan, remember, do not hit enter. You got to hit tab. So I'm going to type in the number 10 and hit tab, okay? I'm going to put these color codes into the chat for you guys as well. So cyan is going to be 10. Yellow is going to be 0. So I'm going to do 0, tab. Oh, magenta. Dang it. I'm getting mixed up. I was looking at something. Okay. Cyan is 10. Magenta is 0. Yellow is 40. And black is 0. Okay. So your color code is 10, 0, 40, 0. Once you have all 4 color code numbers in there, hit the add button. When you're adding multiple swatches and you know like what colors you're choosing, this is a really good way just to do them all at once. Because if you hit done, it's going to close the panel and you're like, ah, shit, I got to add another swatch and you got to go through the process again. So hitting add just allows you to continue to add multiple ones. Okay. So the next one is going to be cyan 25. So we're just going to select the cyan, do 25, hit tab, magenta 75, yellow 0, black 0. I like this color. It's like a purpley bubble gum. It's like a bubble gum kind of color. And that color code, that's the color code for it. So 257500, right? All right, so now we're gonna give it a try where I just tell you guys the color code, okay? I mean, I'm putting them in the chat too. So the next one is gonna be 90, 70, 30, 0. Ooh, I love this blue. It's a really good one. I don't like the yellow, and I don't think I like the next color, but I like this blue a lot. 90, 70, 30, 0. Hit add. I think that there's one. Oh, God, yeah, I hate this. I'm not a fan of this color. Okay. And then the last one is going to be 65, 25, 100, 0. 65, 25, 100, 0. Oh, I should type that in myself. I don't like that green. But there you go. And you can hit done when we get to that green. So we added a Toyo color, which is like fuchsia, right? Then we did a light yellow. I don't hate it. Yellow is an iffy color sometimes to me. It depends on how you're using it. I do like that kind of purpley pink. It's kind of nice. I love that blue. Nice, good, like kind of evening blue. Oh, that's a really good way to describe it, an evening blue. I like that. And then we have this green, which is not a bad green. I don't like that green. It's a little flat for me. I'd probably reduce the yellow a little bit, but anyways, just opinions. So that's how you can actually add swatches, and these are color codes. Literally, it's 10, 0, 40, 0. That's all I would yell at someone. And you just type them in and then you add that swatch. So just so you're aware, you can look like a really seasoned pro that way. But what's really great is, and we'll be doing this, is where we're adding colors to these different objects. We're gonna, it's the exact same color code, and we're not having to guess that we got the right bubblegum purple or purpley bubblegum kind of color, or that good evening blue. Like it's the exact color, okay? I just remember when it really wasn't a thing, and I just worry that people do actually try to use that eyedropper on the rainbow scale for the color panel. Okay, so we've got our colors in there. Let's start messing up this whole flyer thing and make it like noticeably worse. Okay, that's kind of how every project is here, or every lesson. So we're gonna take our selection tool, the black arrow. There is actually an object here. So when we move our cursor over it, you get that black square there. This tool doesn't differentiate between anchor points and lines, but it lets you know that there is an object there. And that's what that black square is. So we're going to click once to select that object. By the way, in case you ever were wondering, white is 0, 0, 0, 0. Which is interesting because in color theory for like art, white is the absence of color and black is the encompassment of all colors. Now, the code for what's called rich black is not 100, 100, 100, 100. It's actually like 95, 95, 95, 95. It's kind of weird like that. You can look up online because there's some variations. It's like between 94 and 96 on certain colors. But that's how you can get a nice, good, rich black. If you just do 100 black and 0 everything else, it's kind of like a flat grayish black. It's kind of weird. So you definitely, if you're looking for a rich black, look up online for a good color code for that. And also, just so we can get past it, paper is not white. Paper is the color of the paper that you're printing on. Now, we normally print on white paper, so that's why it sits as white, because if you print blue on yellow paper, that ink is going to show up as a green. So you got to be careful. But just be aware that's not actually white. But the color code for white is 0, 0, 0, 0. So we're going to select this background shape. And then in your swatches panel on the top left, you have your fill and color. just in case anyone forgot, I'm sure you guys remember, but just in case, whichever one is on top where they overlap, that's the one you're working on. So if you see the stroke where it's got like the outline and it's on top of the other one, then you're adjusting the color of the stroke, and we don't want to do that right now. We selected the background. You can see that that's got paper selected, or it's a white square. Make sure that white square is on top. Then they want us to choose that green, the green that we added. It's really not that bad. It just looks terrible. But we're gonna put it in there. So this is where I get to share with you guys a lot of like the visual aspects of how color gets used. So as soon as we do that, that black lettering Orchid Clinic, don't worry, we're gonna make some changes to help it. But that creates a color conflict. It's a little stressful to look at. You should actually just take one look and go, I don't like that. That's stress. That's creating stress for the reader. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna change that. Having dark colors on dark colors, like dark text on dark colors, doesn't work. So you want to have, and it's referred to as contrast. So a light color with a dark color. It makes things easier to read. Hence, you get black lettering on a white background or white lettering on a black background. That's your contrast, okay? So we have this set. So let's take a look at our swatches panel. Let's go to the top and kind of off to the right a little bit. You see where it says 100. To the left, it says tint. Now, this is always a fun fact. I love sharing this with my college students, and I always love telling it to my middle school kids. When we think of tinting of something, we think about window tint on a vehicle. It darkens the window so that, the cops can't look in, or more importantly, we keep sunlight out so that A, we don't damage the interior upholstery, and B, it kind of helps to keep the vehicle a little cooler on the interior. In art, it is the opposite. Tinting, or to add it, or to tint a color, is to lighten it. And so this is actually how I shut down the boys' argument of pink's a girl's color. The two colors that are used to make pink are red and white. And so I would say, is red a girl's color? And they go, no. And I'm like, exactly. All it is pink is red with white, which is just tinting it. So we're lightening red to make a pink. So that just kind of helps you understand that it's not going to darken the color, it's going to lighten the color. It's called shading. I think no, what is it called? I think it's shadow. It may be shading. One of them actually means gray, and so I think shading is actually gray. But that's how you darken it. So this actually, as I go down a rabbit hole tangent, I'm so sorry. Tint is actually if we want to lighten it. So if it's 100% a color, just click that arrow. It'll bring out a ramp, and this little dot's your stopper. So if we start to move this down, you're going to see that your color lightens up. Now, there's a certain point that it looks awkward. So we definitely want to be careful of how light we make this. They want us to take it to 40%. So it's still going to have that greenish feel, but it's going to allow darker colors to still stand out against it. Okay. You can also just type 40% in there. And then when you're done, just click anywhere else on your swatches panel. Don't click a swatch, just click someplace like to the side. And that'll go, or you can click that arrow and it'll disappear. So that's tinting. And if you want to sound fancy and someone has a light colored shirt, go, oh, I love the tint of the blue on you. And then they're like, wait, what? And then you just sound like very artsy fartsy. So if you want to sound pretentious. Okay. So we added we took the background shape, we switched it from paper to the green, and then because of that contrast that we need to achieve for legibility, we went ahead and we just switched it over to or adjusted the tint so that we have a good contrast. We lightened the color a little bit. We gave it a tint. So let's go to this little box. We're going to go to these 6 boxes towards the bottom, and we're going to go to the one that says Urban Oasis Gardens. Urban Oasis Gardens. With our selection tool, don't select anything. Just go to Edit, Deselect All. I have a reason for that. There's different ways to apply colors to objects. And so obviously, if you click it, you can go ahead and apply it. What I'm going to do, I still have the fill on top. I'm going to grab that yellow, the cyan 10. Yeah, cyan 10. I'm going to click and drag it from the swatches. Don't do it over the text, just do it over the box and then release it, and it's going to apply it to that box. I'm just going to click and drag it over and release. And I'll do that again for the video. So this is another quick way to add fill to an object. And it doesn't matter if you have fill or stroke on top. It's immediately going to apply it as the fill if you just drop it over the open box. Don't worry about the stroke. You want to do that manually anyways. So we applied that. And so I'll let you guys, if you want to drag and drop on certain things, you can. If you want to select and then select a swatch, you can. Just be really careful because if you drag a swatch over text, it will apply the swatch to the text. So just be careful. The box that has $75, we're going to take our, excuse me, our purple bubble gum. That's what I'm going to call this one because now that I lighten my screen, it's more bubble gum. We're going to use the bubble gum pink, and we're going to add that to the background for the box where it says $75. And actually, we're going to ruin that box later, but you can almost see where that value or hue is the fancy word for colors. That hue of pink is real rich, and it's starting to kind of conflict with that black on the 75. But that text is so big, it's not that hard on the eyes. So we still have nothing selected, so we're going to go up to where it says Orchid Clinic. Okay. So this is text that has been outlined. So it's been converted to outlines. You can't edit this text anymore. They're just shapes in the shape of letters. So using your selection tool, let's just go ahead and click it. It's a lot easier that way. We're going to click this selection. Click this set of objects. And if you go to your swatches panel at the top, make sure that the fill is on top. It should be black. Just a solid black. And then we're going to actually add our Toyo pink color, our fuchsia, our hot pink right there. I don't hate it. I just don't like it. So I know I said we're going to ruin this thing. I don't tell you guys that lightly. So we're going to put that there. The drop shadow that they have applied, that's what's helping this kind of stand out against the background. It's still terrible. It's honestly just awful. So don't worry. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to select that green line that's below the large picture of orchids. I really wish that I could grow orchids. I might try next spring. I don't know. It gets humid here a lot. But we're going to select that green line. Now this is, take a look at something. Yep, this is a line. So this is a line, not a rectangle. So when we apply color to it, we need to change the stroke on it. In the real world, you would know this is a line because you drew it. So I just had to double check for myself. So instead of green, I'm going to go over to my swatches panel. Actually, I'm going to go to the control panel at the top. I'll take you guys that route this time. I actually like to use the swatches panel personally. But if we go to control panel at the top, we have the fill and the stroke. The stroke is currently set to green. If you have a single line just going side to side or vertical, like in two opposite directions, you're not going to see a fill because it doesn't have any walls to work with. If it's like an L shape, you could actually see some of the fill, but don't worry about the fill being there. We're going to change the outline or the stroke color. So we're going to click that arrow to drop it down. It's going to be that evening blue. Y'all, the first class, I'm using that, and I'm going to continue to use that. I appreciate your tolerance of my fun language skills. So we're going to change it from green dark to the evening blue. And then just remember, you click that arrow to make that panel go away. But I do like that blue a lot better than that green. So what they're kind of getting you with is just making sure that you pay attention to fill and stroke. Remember, y'all, if you're having any issues, please let me know. You can interrupt me with audio or jump in the chat. So the next thing we're going to do, we're just going to scooch down a little bit to this really cool picture of an orchid with a black background. That is a really cool looking orchid. So this is actually an image frame, and it has a picture of an orchid in there. And that has a black, really cool, rich black background, but it has a black stroke around it. So with our selection tool, don't click the donut, just click the image itself. I'm sorry, click the frame. So that when we look at it, selected, when we look at our swatches panel, you'll see the black for the stroke, and then there's nothing as the fill, because this is filled with a picture, which that's why it's got a black background. So we're going to change that stroke. We're going to change it to the evening blue. I think it's a good idea to change the color. I don't know if that blue is the best one. I love it, but it just may not apply. But when you're applying colors or changing colors, just be aware of that whole, fill versus stroke. It'll only take you like a half dozen, maybe 5 dozen times before you're like, oh crap, I got to do this way. So don't sweat it. But just make sure that whichever one you're changing is the one that's on top of the other one. Now I'm going to show you guys a trick. I actually like this. Super cool. We're going to address this text. I'm going to make sure I know what color it's going to be. Oh, they're going to use that green. Nah, we're going to do the blue. I don't like, I have to rebel. So let's take our selection tool, the black arrow, just click once to select the text frame. I'm going to show you guys a cool trick. This only works if you're trying to change the color of all the text inside of a text frame. Okay. So, because once I discovered this, I did use it. It doesn't necessarily save a ton of time, but it definitely makes things a little quicker to change the color of text. So we're going to change all of this text. So we just select the text frame. And so rather than select the text, change the color, deselect the text, don't like it, select the text, change the color to a different color, deselect it, still don't like it, we're just going to select the frame and tell it to change the color of the text inside. Now, this only works if you're trying to change all the text inside of a frame, if you're going to change the color of all of that text. If you just want to do like one paragraph or one line, you have to select that line of text. So, but we're going to change all this color. Over in our swatches panel, we're going to look at where it has the fill and stroke, which are set to none. So there's no outline, no fill. Next to it is a square. When you move your cursor over, it shows you labels. This is formatting effects container. This means that whatever color choices we change are going to affect the actual frame, not the text. But there's a capital T next to it, like the Texas Rangers. So when we click on that one, it actually addresses the formatting affects the text inside. So once you click that T, you're going to notice that the fill is now a T, and it's black, which is the color of the text inside. The T stands for text, and the color inside that T reflects the color of the text that you're addressing. So we just have the frame selected. I'm going to make it be the blue. I like the blue. But I'm going to cycle through them all. I like the blue. But I do want you to have a chance to cycle through the colors and take a look. Oh, they want to use the green dark, and I don't like it. I'm going to keep it blue. I'll let you guys choose whichever color you want. But I like this because if you're doing like a display, like a chapter header or something, this is a good way to see if certain colors work or if the colors contrast with the background color or image. Like it's just a really cool way to do it, but it only does everything inside the frame. So just keep that in mind. But it's a really cool little deal. And again, I've used it quite a few times as I was doing projects, and it's very helpful, very cool. All right. Then we're going to go down to the $75. So we can click once to select that frame. I just got to double check something. The 65. Yeah, okay. Got it. So we're going to do the same thing. So we're selecting the frame. We're going to go into our swatches panel at the top. We're going to switch it from the square, that format affects container. We're going to switch it to it affects the text. So click the capital T. We're going to do this on purpose. It's a really great example. It's ugly, but it's a great example of color conflicts. So we have the T selected. The text is black. We're going to change it to that obnoxious green, the cyan 65. This is like the prime example of two colors competing. So it is so hard to look at that color text that I actually don't want to look at my screen. But this is a really prime example of stress for the reader. You don't want to look at it. I don't want to look at it. So we don't want that to be something that our viewer has to see. However, we can do things to help alleviate some of that. So what we're going to do, this text is actually real big, and because this is like a single page flyer. So we're going to actually just add a stroke to it because the text is large enough that the stroke will help. Okay. So over in your swatches panel, that T is that obnoxious green T. Go ahead and click on the stroke, which has the red line through it. So we're addressing that now. We're going to, which one do they want us to? They want us to do the blue. Thank you. Go ahead and hit the blue. Now, when you apply a stroke color, it immediately gives you 1 point stroke. But as you can see, creating that barrier between that pink, well, bubblegum pink, and that obnoxious green, just having another color there helped to separate the two colors. We have removed some of the visual stress of the color conflict. Okay. But also just keep in mind that as a default, it immediately gives it a 1 point stroke. So if you want to change that, you have to go to stroke and change it. However, with outlining text, a little bit goes a long way. Less is more. So 1 point's all we need. But yes, this is a great way to solve a color conflict like that. Okay, then finding and changing color swatches. What? Wow. Okay. They're doing find this color. But now what are you guys trying to change on my thing? Oh, well. I'm honestly, I'm not going to do that one because it's not often that you have to do that. And it's there in the book. But what I want to do is introduce you to tinted swatches. So this is what, well, let's do edit deselect all. Okay. So then what we're going to do is we're going to create a tinted swatch. So we're going to take a swatch that already exists, and then we're going to create a swatch that's a lighter version of it. And this actually is going to create a parent-child system. So I'll explain that once we have them created. So we make sure nothing is selected because we don't want to accidentally put this in there. And then in your swatches panel, let's choose the bubblegum pink because we're going to do a tint based on this. So we have that cyan 25 pink selected. We're going to go to the swatches panel menu in the top right. And it's actually the second option. That option is not available unless you have a swatch selected because it's going to build off of that. So choose a new tint swatch. So we choose the bubblegum pink first, the 25 cyan. We're going to do the swatches panel menu and then choose a new tint swatch. All right. So we can't change any of the color formula or settings for that specific swatch because we're basing it off of it. So we're not changing that. We just want to add a tint or change that. So we're going to change this. We have the ramp and the stop. So a slider and the stop. We're going to change that value to, there we go. We're going to change that value to 65. And it's okay if it's not perfect. You can get it, type in the value if you know what it is. All right. Did you get kicked out, Caitlin? Oh no, I think you logged in with a different device. So no worries, just making sure you're still with us. Okay, so basically we're taking this pink swatch. Oh, doesn't it always do that? So, well, glad you were able to jump back in. So we're taking that pink swatch. We're going to create a tint of 65%, which means it's going to be a little lighter. And then let's just go ahead and hit OK. And so this adds it to the bottom of our swatches. So the question might be, why? Why do you want to do that? Is that necessary? To be honest with you, it's if you want to use that specific tint, because then you don't. I'm trying to think of like the best way to explain this. So a lot of stuff like swatches and styles, they're based on the principle of do a little bit of work up front and then on the, like later you don't have to. So rather than going through like a 100-page document and everywhere that I want to have a 65% tint pink, I don't have to choose that object and then change it and then go to the next one and then change it, because then the client will come back and go, you know what? I don't really like that one. Can we like change it back? And then I have to go through all those objects and do that. So by creating the swatch, I can always come back later and change it. So if you guys will actually watch my screen for a second, I'm gonna and actually on mine, just watch that tint. You'll also notice that it has the 65% at the end of the name. It's also at the top of the swatches panel. But this is a parent-child system. So if I want to change this, if the client's like, just, maybe lighten it or maybe not that light, like bring it back a little bit, I could just adjust this, change this back a little, hit OK, and my swatch changes. I'm going to change it back to 65 on purpose. All right. But if the client's like, I don't like that, okay, I can't just change this. I have to change the parent, but I can actually change that parent. That was a terrible example of a way to do it. Let's do it like that. And then it'll change the child. But you can also see that it's going to change, wherever I applied that from. So I'm going to undo that and undo that. There it is. All right. So this is beneficial because then if I want to change this, I can adjust the tinting on it and it'll be for every object. Okay. But I wanted to show you how it's a parent-child system. Just be aware of that. All right, let's go ahead. We can go back to our screens. And then we're going to apply this swatch. They actually want us to apply it to the $75 spot. So I'm just going to click and drag this over to that box. I mean, even with the blue there, like that's the only thing keeping that green from fighting the red. If you're familiar with complementary colors, red and green, blue and orange, and yellow and purple, they do tend to fight with each other. There's a whole color theory lesson that we did in college, and it will definitely give you a headache. But we're going to keep that blue there. Just remember that stroke is what really separates these two and makes it easier on the reader to see. If you're looking at something and you're like, holy crap, that's like really messing with my eyes, fix it, because there's a reader who's going to see it and they're going to curse you up and down for it. Okay. The next thing we're going to talk about are, and I'm actually going to switch my screen share piece, is just in case like you're following along and don't have images for the book. We're going to talk about gradients, and they were such a pain back in like the 90s and early 2000s, but they're a lot easier to work with now. Some commercial printers, honestly, I'm betting that most commercial printers now are pretty good about handling these. But just always do a proof, and I try to not be too heavily lean. Like I try not to lean on them too heavily when I'm doing gradients. But there's two types of gradients. There's a linear, so it goes from one to the other. A gradation is the transition from one to another or more colors. So in this case, it goes from white to the pink. If you're thinking about transparent to a color, that's called feathering. We're going to talk about that someplace else. But transition linear, you see it goes in one direction, not the band, but an actual direction. And then there's a radial gradient, and that always starts in the center of your shape, and it goes from one color all the way out to the other, and it's always on the outside. So that's your radial versus linear. A lot of times, I honestly can tell you I've never ever in my life used radial for anything. So most of the time we use the linear gradient. But we're gonna create a swatch for a gradient. And that's actually really helpful to create because we're doing two different colors. I've also seen swatch gradients that were like, and I'm not even kidding, it was like 63 colors. That's way too much, people. Like, that's just ridiculous. It was like a stock photo thing in like 1998. So that's how long I've been messing with colors. But when you put two colors in for a gradient, it's a really good idea to just go ahead and make it a swatch. So that way you have A, control, and B, you can always change colors if you need. It's a lot easier that way. Swatches are really, really easy to work with. I prefer using them. So what we're going to do is make sure nothing is selected. So edit, deselect all. I told you you'd have dreams, nightmares, whatever, flashbacks later of me saying deselect all. So we have nothing selected, and we're going to go into the panel menu again. So the swatches panel menu. And we're going to choose that third option, a new gradient swatch, because we're going to create a new one. All right. I cannot begin or even stop telling you, please name things what they are. So this one or how they're being used. This one is going to be called pink/yellow. I'm still showing the Kindle? Are you serious? I did not tell it to show the Kindle. All right, there we go. Well, then let me back out. Here we go. Thank you for letting me know. All right, so I'm going to go to the menu, choose a new gradient swatch. And then this one's going to be called pink/yellow. And again, this is because the two colors that we're using in there. Again, I want to think about it in terms of, and because she put it in the chat, if Patricia has to work tomorrow behind me, I want to make sure she knows what colors are being used specifically here. Okay. So we have pink/yellow for the type. We're going to leave it linear, but I want to show you that it does linear and radial. That's where you get to choose between the two. Again, 9 times out of 10, we generally just use the linear. And then down here we have our ramp, and then we have our stoppers. I always default with putting my stoppers all the way out to the outsides. Just making sure they go all the way from 0 to 100. So let's first start with the left stopper. So I'm going to just click the stopper once, and then you'll see up here, we have our CMYK color code, no biggie. We don't have to use, enter in the code. We can go to where it says stop color. It's set to CMYK. If you drop this one down, this isn't a color mode. This is a stop color. So it'll actually allow us to choose our swatches. And this one's going to be the bubblegum pink. So we're going to choose that bubblegum pink. Then we're going to choose the stopper. That's all the way on the far right-hand side. Mine's set to paper, so we're going to turn this one into that yellow. And so this is going to go from pink to yellow, okay? That little diamond at the top, that's actually like this is the point where basically your color transition happens. I usually leave it in the middle by itself. It's just up to you if you ever decide you want to move it one way or the other. But this is like the absolute midpoint where pink is transitioning into yellow at an even amount. I did have a student actually last semester ask me, and it's come up before too, how do you add other stoppers? So this open space between the two stoppers, if you can do this too if you want. If you just click once, it'll put a new stopper there. And then of course you can adjust things. If you ever need to get rid of a stopper, because especially if you go back and watch the video, I actually had one accidentally show up because I clicked wrong. You just click on that stopper you want to remove, click and drag it down, and it'll disappear. Okay. Just want to, to make sure people knew, and I'm recording, so you can always review this as well. Once we have our pink and our yellow set, let's hit OK. And that pops down at the bottom of your swatches. There's nothing on the right-hand side because this is comprised of more than one color, so it's not going to actually tell you if it's CMYK or blah, blah, blah. It's a gradient, and since we are using colors from our swatches parent-child, if I change that pink, it's going to change the pink in the swatches or in the gradient as well. Okay, so you should have the pink yellow at the bottom. And it's cool because that little swatch square actually shows a gradient there. So we're going to take a look at where it says grow, maintain, rebloom, which only works with perennials. Oh, yeah. Here, let me take this out. Thanks for asking. Mary Kay wants to see that process again. I got you. All right, so make sure I have nothing selected. So I'm going to go to my menu in the top left, top right for the color swatches panel menu. And then the third option is a new gradient swatch. We're going to call it pink/yellow. I'm leaving it linear. So I'm going to go down here to the ramp. It's obviously already got the color set. So I would just click on the stopper. If I need to change that color for the stop color, I can just drop this thing down. If I want a color code, I can choose one of the color processes, or I could just choose swatches. Then I click on my color. I got the yellow. I know you're probably wanting to see how to add and remove the stoppers, but just give me a minute. And then I'm going to click on the yellow because that's what I want there. If you want to add a stopper, it's just this open space below the ramp that's between the two stoppers. You just click to add it in there. And then if it does appear and you don't want it, you just click and drag it out. Okay. And the reason I point that out really is just because, like I said earlier, I had the blue when I started, it kind of ended up like this. So I just had to real quick remove it. Again, if you watch the video after tomorrow, you'll see me do it real quick without saying anything. But sometimes I've actually done it where I've gone from like a dark blue to a light blue to a white. Like I'm actually helping it transition in a specific way. So yeah, that's how you add a stop and you remove a stop. It's just click and drag it down to remove it. Okay, excellent. Good question. I'm happy to show that to you guys. All right, so let's take our selection tool and we're going to go to this text frame that says grow, maintain, bloom. Also, like I've told you guys before, I'm real good at gardening. I have the green thumb. A perennial is a flower that comes back every year, and an annual is not, which is very confusing. And straight up, like being really honest, the only reason I can remember that is Grand Theft Auto, the video game. Perennial cars are the most common ones that populate. That's how I could actually remember a gardening term. Was a video game. Okay, so we're gonna select this. It's just a text frame, a white text frame with black text. I'm going to apply my gradient. So I've got this selected. I'm going to look at the top. Now, be careful because a gradient can also be applied as a stroke. So I'm going to make sure my fill is on top. It's currently set to paper, and then I'm going to hit pink yellow. All right. So hopefully that worked for everybody. And now, this is the cool part. Now I'm going to show you guys how the gradient swatch or the gradient tool works. I love this tool. It's super cool. All right, so back in the day, if I wanted to rotate this, I would have had to like do a whole process of like going to Photoshop, turning the object, or fixing a clipping mask or something. Like it was such a chore. Oh my God. It's why I actually hated gradients for the longest time because I didn't like having to try to figure out how to make them go in a different direction. So there's actually a tool that they had developed a long time ago that works to do that. So what we're going to do is go over to your toolbar, find the scissors. Remember, kids, don't run with scissors. And then you're going to go 2 spots down from the scissors. And so when we are working inside, if you put your cursor over, it'll tell you the name. It's called a gradient swatch tool. And it basically looks like it goes from black, gray to white. That's your tool. So we're going to click it. And then it actually doesn't do anything until you select something that has a gradient. So we're going to select that box. And then your cursor will turn from an arrow to crosshairs. I have a habit of like deselecting by accident, like just automatically. So please, if you're like, I didn't see my black arrow, it was me. It was totally me. It's just like it becomes second nature. I don't even think about it. So this tool is super cool, and that rhymed. But I want you to go to the top center line. Sorry, top center of the frame, that center box. I want you to click and drag down to the bottom center, and you're going to get that green line. It's your smart guides. And I want you to release when you get to the bottom. And you're going to see you turned the color. Cool. Let's go from the top left to the bottom right. So we're using those boxes as our points. Neat. Now, the cool thing also about this that really takes it next level is you can click outside of your frame if you want a really smooth, like subtle transition, or you can click like real tight inside and go from like pink, 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 wow, down to yellow. And again, I have it on the video too. So I'm gonna give you guys a moment. I'm gonna let you all kind of figure out which direction you want this to go. I think I'm gonna go. The book wants you to go from, I think, top left to bottom right. Oh, it wants you to go from top to bottom. Honestly, I kind of want to go bottom to top. It's like a sunset to me. Or sunrise. Depends on when you wake up in the day. All right. Let me take a look at where we're at. Is this it? Oh, yeah, let's do this last thing and then we'll do our break. We got one more thing to do. I told you that the lessons like after 4, they get a lot quicker. All right. So let's my mouse is deciding to go spastic. Okay. So edit, deselect all. And this last part, oh my God, it changed a lot of how like I use this when I was working at the insurance broker because I was like, oh my God, when they introduced this tool, like this is about like 8 or 9 years ago. Oh, this thing was so neat. Okay. So we're all pretty familiar with the eyedropper tool. It's standard, it's been around for decades, but it samples a color, and it's even harder to do so with images simply because um, they're raster. So like the beauty in a raster image is the variety of pixel colors that are used to create like even just a single strip of color. So if you've ever done the eyedropper across like a part of an image, you'll see that it changes because there's like all these different squares there. So this other tool that they introduced, it allows you to make a selection of colors out of an image. So if we go to our toolbar and right above the hand, so there's the zoom tool, the hand tool, and there's an eyedropper, and then it's got like 3 or 4 little squares next to it. That's the one we want. Okay. This is called the color theme tool. Oh my God, this thing is amazing. You're ready to get your minds blown. So, and it's the eyedropper tool, but this does more than just sample a color. I love it. I'm actually really excited to show you guys this. I love this. All right, so we're gonna sample out of the really cool orchid with the black background image. Okay. So it doesn't matter where you click. What this tool does is it's going to sample multiple colors, like most common colors out of there, and it's going to show them to you. So I want you to take your color theme tool, go over to this cool, like really, really wicked cool orchid, and I just want you to click anywhere in there, and then you're going to get this panel that pops up. So what's neat is it samples 5 colors out of there, the 5 common colors. So we have a pink, a blue. Actually, that pink and that blue look real similar to our swatches, including maybe one of the greens. And then it's got a black in there too. It's not a rich, rich black, but it's a pretty rich black. So we have these. That's the cool part. So I've done this where I'm like, hey, you know what? There's this like construction company, and I'm going to take a strip out some colors from a construction photo they sent, and it allows me to sample like really common colors that are in there. But wait, there's more. So before we get too far, there's an arrow here, and I want you to click on that. So this is the current theme, and when you open it, there's colorful, bright, dark, deep, and muted. Muted is like where they just take the vibrance out of the color. But as you can see, there's a whole slew of different color theme combos. You can create a palette from a picture. And that's what this is. It's a color palette. For this one, let's choose bright, just to mess with things. So we're gonna choose bright. And then you can see all the colors. And what's neat is if you move your cursor over them, it'll actually tell you what the color code is, which is no big deal. I need us to jump to the right. So if we look at the first option of the 2 on the far right, there's add this theme to swatches. And then there's add this theme to my current CC library. So I don't use CC libraries, but I do use that first one, add this theme to swatches. So I'm going to click once. This adds a folder because you can like you can organize and sub-organize swatches, just like styles, into folder groups or into groups. So this is going to create like a folder group, and it's called Bright Theme. It's the Bright from the theme tool, and it'll list all 5 of those swatches in there, and they're all set. And you can do it for different variations. Like I'm going to add the dark because I really do like that. Like that's a straight up Merlot color. Boom. And I said boom. There we go. And so this one adds another folder called dark theme, and it has those dark colors in there. So if you're ever like, I need a color palette for this project, this is a great way to pull colors out of an image, especially if you see a picture and you're like, I really like these colors in here. Love this freaking tool. Love it. Okay. So really neat. And then as soon as you switch to another tool, that panel disappears, but you still have your swatches in there. Okay.